What's up, everybody? This is Adam, aka DJ Costa. That is my stage name for when I'm DJing, doing karaoke. I'm also known as Cali Coaster, Coaster Punk, Punkvid 619, Punkvid Music on YouTube. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you found me because today I want to talk about something that I've kind of just recently discovered, although I'm surprised that it took me so long to figure this out and try to see this. I'm talking about one of the world's most renowned, beloved stand-up coasters. I'm talking Riddler's Revenge at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Now, pretty much everybody in the coaster community and a lot of those in the GP outside of the regular community recognize and know that this is a modern coaster marvel that opened over 26 years ago at Six Flags Magic Mountain in Valencia, California, in Santa Clarita Valley. Although it's not really in the valley, technically it's on the side of the mountain overlooking the valley, but I digress. Anyway, there's some things that I've noticed recently that, like I said before, I'm surprised it took me so long to notice this. It was originally designed by coaster firm that is world renowned and probably one of the top firms still in the coaster building community in the amusement industry, Bolliger and Mabillard. Now, this firm came about as another firm was coming to an end in the early to mid 80s. Intamin had been looking to increase their portfolio and their offerings, and they contracted with a company called Giovanola for engineering some new rides, mainly roller coasters, because that was a specialty in Giovanola's portfolio. So they came up with some great concepts. Some great rides came out of that, some not so great rides. However, pretty much everything that Giovanola was into is still regarded today as groundbreaking and not record breaking, but noteworthy. One of the first Giovanola coaster concepts that came through their partnership with Intamin was the not so acclaimed but well known Z Force Space Diver coaster, which there was only one model ever built, but it traveled across the United States at several different parks it called home. The first installation, I believe, was at Six Flags Great America in Gurnee, Illinois. And it was originally built on the site that became the future site of Bolliger and Mabillard's first stand-up coaster by their own firm, Iron Wolf, which lasted quite a while. It was eventually dismantled and moved to Six Flags America, where it opened up as Apocalypse the Ride. And more recently, that ride has been converted into a sit-down floorless coaster known today as Firebird. And from what I understand, unfortunately, that ride is not going to survive the recent announcement closure for the entire park of Six Flags America, which sits in the outskirts of Washington, D.C. in Maryland, between Upper Marlboro and Largo. And unfortunately, the original layout of the world's first Bolliger and Mabillard modern stand-up coaster is going to be lost to existence. Now, I hope that a museum picks up at least a couple of the original stand-up trains and track, as well as the current track, at least a couple pieces, and places it in storage. I'm looking at National Roller Coaster Museum. I'm hoping that you can gather the funding to place these on display, because this is a landmark in the coaster world. most of us coaster enthusiasts like myself regard Boligar and Mabillard as probably the world's greatest roller coaster designing and manufacturing firm because they've created some world class rides. And to think that it all started with a stand up coaster that was no more than 100 feet tall and no more impressive than some of the modern family coasters that are being produced today. But because of their innovation and their drive to create something better, the world got a glimpse at what the world of roller coastering could be. And this was about the same time that the coaster wars started back in the late 80s. Iron Wolf opened, I believe, in 1990. It was originally designed in the late 80s, and it came just after Aerodynamics, which was another leading firm in the theme park industry at the time. Unfortunately, they're no longer in existence. I think a lot of you already know the story, what happened with that, but this video is not about other manufacturing firms. It's about the creation of one of the greatest roller coaster firms in the industry that still stands the test of time today. They're still putting out mega hits. They're putting out slappers and all over the globe. Boligar and Mabillard. And the reason I bring up Iron Wolf and stand-up coasters is because what I'm talking about today is something that's near and dear to me. One of my favorite roller coasters of all time. I've been on many. I've been on hundreds. I'm one of those people. I don't count my credits. I don't sit there and track every coaster, every park that I've been to. I just look back and think about the experiences that I had because I believe that's what the community should be about. Credit seeking, I think, kind of takes away from that and takes away from the fun. I think the whole point is to just go out there and enjoy yourself. It doesn't matter if it's a kiddie coaster, a family coaster, a thrill coaster, a mega coaster. If it's a coaster, just get out there and ride and enjoy the experience. Don't worry about logging it in a book. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just enjoy the ride, man. That's what it should be about. But anyway, yeah, I've probably got over hundreds and hundreds of credits that I haven't even thought to count because I'm 42 years old. That's a lot of coasters to think back on. Anyway, my main park, my home park, well, one of several home parks, being lucky enough to grow up in Southern California, I was within a couple hours drive of many parks, so it's hard to really say which one was my home park because most of the greatest parks and greatest thrills were within a half day's drive for me. And I never really took that for granted. I took every opportunity I had to get out there and ride, get out, see what's new. But the park that I call my home park will always be Six Flags Magic Mountain because even though it was a couple hours north of where I was, to me, that's still a home park because you can still enjoy an entire day there and get back within the same day to your bed, have a good night. And in 1998, Boligar and Mabillard unveiled what is, and probably, I hope, always will be, the world's greatest standing coaster. I'm talking Riddler's Revenge. And I've always loved this coaster. It will always have a spot in my heart, just like the aforementioned Aerodynamics mega looping coaster. Viper will always have a soft spot in my heart. And I'm glad that Viper's lines have gotten shorter and shorter because I don't care if I have to down a bottle of Tylenol after I ride it. I will find every chance I have when I get to Six Flags to ride Viper. And it's cool that the lines have gotten shorter and shorter because that means I can get on and off, have a great experience, and continue my day at an amazing theme park. Anyway, some things that I've noticed recently about Riddler's Revenge, and none of this in any way is a negative reflection on the amazing experience that coaster is. While it's still a stand-up coaster, if you have not ridden it yet, I believe that alone is worth that credit. If you can find a way, find the time, get down to Southern California, get to Los Angeles, fly into LAX, take an Uber, take a taxi, call a friend, get you up to Six Flags Magic Mountain, get on Riddler's Revenge while it still stands in its original operating mode today, because I guarantee you will not be disappointed. Now, there's a lot of complaints and a lot of negativity around the Bolliger and Mabillard standing coasters, especially the ones that have been operating for over 20 years. They're rough, they're loud, they're uncomfortable. I guarantee you, Riddler's Revenge is worth any amount of slight discomfort you may experience. You kind of just have to know how to ride those coasters. I mean, I've ridden on several stand-up coasters, one from Togo, several from Bolliger and Mabillard B&M, and I have not had a bad experience on any of them. And that includes the Vortex, which was recently converted. Well, I say recently because, you know, I'm getting old. It feels like just yesterday. I wrote it as Vortex, but now it's Patriot at California's Great America. And it was one of the first stand-up to sit-down floorless conversions that B&M did. And I haven't ridden it since it got converted. I've been on floorless coasters. I've been on Scream at Magic Mountain. I've been on Medusa at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. They're cool, but you can sit down on pretty much any roller coaster. The stand-up experience is the experience that's really hard to find, and a good stand-up experience is even harder, especially now that more and more have been converted into sit-down floorless coasters. And I want to make sure that I supply the correct amount of information, enough hype, enough experience to get you excited in the coaster community about experiencing a world-class stand-up thrill coaster. Now, I did say that Bolliger and Mabillard started back in the 90s, but that wasn't their first experience. Iron Wolf wasn't the first stand-up coaster that they actually engineered and designed. If you go back a few years, when Bolliger and Mabillard still worked at Giovanola and contracted with Intamin, there was another stand-up coaster at the same park I'm talking about. If you remember your coaster history, if you know what I'm talking about, you'll know I'm talking about Shockwave, which operated in the back left section of the park from the entrance. A section of the park that, to me, feels like it's plagued with bad coasters, because after Shockwave, or sorry, even before Shockwave, Sarajevo Bobsleds, another Intamin Giovanola coaster design. It was an Intamin Swiss Bob, stood there for a couple of years, got entered to the Six Flags ride rotation program, got moved out of that park. I haven't tracked where it went. I know several other Six Flags parks had similar coasters built, as well as Cedar Point had an Intamin Swiss Bob installed. All of them pretty much had the same layout, same design. A couple of them I know went through coaster train vehicle modifications to increase capacity, but I'm not sure which one went from Magic Mountain to another park. But La Vibora at Six Flags Over Texas recently closed and no longer exists. The Alpine Bobs, or whatever it was called, Great Escape, removed, no longer exists. The Disaster Transport at Cedar Point was removed years ago to make room for the new Gatekeeper B&M Wing Coaster, which, kind of funny, I believe Bolliger and Mabillard were involved in the design of the Swiss Bob coasters. Don't quote me on that, but I wouldn't be surprised. And it's kind of cool to see old and new coming in for the B&M firm. But what other U.S. Six Flags? Six Flags Great Adventure, the Sarajevo bobsled that operated at, I believe what replaced that was Great American Scream Machine, and then that was eventually removed as well. Excuse me, sorry. Oh, had to wet my whistle. Anyway, continuing on, Six Flags Great America also had an Avalanche Intimate Swiss Bob coaster for a few years, and I believe that one was removed to make way for the Batman the Ride. Ironically, one of that was actually B&M's first sit-down inverted roller coaster, and if that is the case, I take it back. I was wrong. Batman the Ride replaced the original Schwarzkopf tidal wave shuttle loop roller coaster. My apologies. But they did have an Avalanche Intamin Swiss Bob coaster at Six Flags Great America. And I'm going to circle back to where I started with Shockwave at Six Flags Magic Mountain replaced the Swiss Bob. After Shockwave was removed, it wasn't long after that ground was cleared and foundations started getting poured, and Cyclone, a wooden coaster that was basically a replica of the original Coney Island Cyclone in Brooklyn, New York. But here's something interesting. Cyclone was fitted with wooden coaster trains by the newly formed firm of Bolliger and Mabillard. And the interesting thing is this would be the first and only time B&M ever fitted trains on a wooden coaster. And it's kind of interesting because Bolliger and Mabillard had their foot in that spot at the park for almost a decade by the time Cyclone opened up to the public. Cyclone did not last forever, as most rides didn't in that area. I don't know. I kind of believe that area of the park is kind of haunted and kind of cursed for rides and coasters of any kind. I don't want to do any digging over there because I don't want to find anything I don't want to find. Literally, like, don't build anything on that side of the park in that corner. And Deja Vu, I'm looking at you because you were kind of in that spot too, and you were plagued with issues as well. You had a delayed opening, and you didn't last quite as long as you should have at that park. But I'm going to shift back over. If you know the layout of the park, we're going to head on over to the right from that spot, continue past Jetstream, under what used to be the Metro track, past the Sky Coaster, look to the left, DC Plaza. I don't remember what it's called now, but look for what is now bright green and yellow track with the roaring trains standing over 170 feet tall. That is the Riddler's Revenge. And when I say this is a world-class stand-up coaster, I'm not talking about just because it is a stand-up coaster. It's got an insane height. Like I said, probably about 170 feet tall, an insane drop into a massive vertical loop that wraps around the lift hill, similar to what's found on Kumba. I mean, there's a lot of signature B&M. You can definitely tell it's a Bolliger and Mabillard coaster design, built and designed by that firm just by looking at the layout itself and the series of elements that follow the drop. However, take a look here as I'll show you the original layout of Shockwave. So Shockwave, you've got the lift hill, you've got the pre-drop, you've got the drop that curves down, you've got a vertical loop, you got a little bit of space, and what's after that, you have something that looks like a modern day inclined loop. You got a little bunny hop and a sharp curve that swoops up to the right into the mid-course brake grind. And then down from there, you got some extra tack. You've got a little swirl, a little helix swirl. You've got what looks like a little bit of an airtime moment, kind of circling back around, a couple flat spots, and then you go back up into the station. Now, if you take that layout and then you look over to Riddler's Revenge, it's almost a similar layout, just expanded with extra elements added in. And I'm not saying that to say B&M we're just copying and pasting and expanding, just to throw things in and make it bigger. To me, Riddler's Revenge feels kind of like an homage and a throwback to what B&M and Giovanola's first actual stand-up coaster was, predating Six Flags Great America's Iron Wolf. Don't believe me? Take a deeper look. Take a longer look. Think what would happen if you take Shockwave's smaller, more compact footprint, expand it a little bit, add in a few more elements, look at what you can do with it, and tell me that Riddler's Revenge is not an homage, a love story, a throwback to their first attempt at making a successful standing roller coaster. Because B&M was not the first one to come up with the stand-up roller coaster idea. As I mentioned before, I've ridden a Togo stand-up. I rode the original King Cobra at Kings Island back in '99 when it was in its heyday. It was fully operational and it was fully fun. It was packed with insane forces. I'm talking about laterals. I'm talking about zero G. I'm talking about high G's. That loop, standing up on a Togo train, that loop is insane. That loop should not have been able to work the way that they did. And then that insane helix just pinning you to the floor, like you could feel your feet almost crushing the floorboards of the train as the train sailed through that helix into that bunny hill over to that trick track that banked you to the left when you were not expecting it. I mean, I knew about it, but to feel it and experience it was something completely different. And honestly, that was probably the most uncomfortable part of the ride, being flung to the left on a straight piece of track for no reason. It was really cool, but unexpected and slightly uncomfortable. And then you got the couple bunny hops back into the brake run, and then that was it. But it was an amazing, fun experience. I'm glad I was able to ride that before Kings Island decided to get rid of it. I'm glad that that legend still lives on. I heard that it's operating now at another park in South America or Mexico, and I'm hoping that it stays there for a long time. If it's not that one, I know it's Skyrider. I know one of the two, because Skyrider and King Cobra opened around the same time. They're exact copies of each other. And there was a third one that opened in North America at Canada's Wonderland, at King's Dominion in Virginia. It was a slight variation on the King Cobra and Skyrider called Shockwave as well. Surprisingly, another stand-up coaster opened in the 80s named Shockwave. No relation, because those parks were operated by two different companies at the time, even though now everything is Six Flags Cedar Fair or Six Cedar Flags Fair. I don't know what it's called anymore, but the industry definitely is not what it used to be. It used to be a lot more fun. It used to be about the fun. It used to be about the excitement. Now it's about the credits. It's about the money. And anyway, that's my take. It's been a long video just to say that I believe Shockwave and Riddler's Revenge are the same coaster, one just bigger than the other with more elements and expanded out. Don't believe me? Take another look back, look at the side by side, look at the photos, the aerials of both. Tell me what your thoughts are. Let me know if you want me to see me do another video. I'm down. Hit me up. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.